Hey guys, welcome to Assessed Bushcraft and Survival.
I'm Bushcraft.
And I'm Survival. And today we're going to talk about why large groups usually fail. So, one of the biggest things that I keep hearing all the time is, oh, if you're a lone wolf, you'll never survive, can't be on your own, got to be in a group. But then I keep seeing time and time again, large groups repeatedly fail. The first thing I see is, in a large group, you've got a lot of social dynamics that have to be dealt with. Now, in a smaller group, usually it's people who are closer to each other, they know each other better, and on top of that, there's usually less bickering because there's that subconscious understanding of who's doing what and why. Whereas when you get to a larger group, you start to get dissent, mistrust, and people thinking, oh, I can do it better, and then wanting to actually take control. That's basically my thoughts on why a large group usually fails. It's pretty much a case of just getting too big to be sustainable. What do you reckon, Bushcraft?
Well, I suppose there are two things that I think about when I'm, addressing the topic and when I'm asked about it. And one of those is obviously the case of social dynamics. That comes down to management. Depending on who your leader is or who your group of leaders are, right, will depend on the size of group that can be managed socially. At the end of the day, as much as we might not want to think of it like this, but you're going to have some kind of democracy or perhaps even totalitarian relationship with whomever it is that is chosen or chooses themselves to be the leader. Again, this will depend on what your group is. Perhaps in some circumstances, for a smaller group, right? So maybe we're talking 30 people or 50 people, something like that. Maybe having someone that's able to put a hard line and their word goes, depending again on the leader and the people, and maybe that's what you need. We have this fantastic idea of wanting to re-establish a democracy as soon as possible. And again, depending on the situation that you find yourself in, right? If you were in a supreme catastrophe, let's just say something that, completely changes the landscape of the world that we live in now, either locally or globally, it's going to come down to a case of, your group fends for themselves. So you're going to become your own, little community. You're going to have your own rules and regulations that you abide by, and you're going to have to protect each other, right? If it comes to the case that somebody is, creating some kind of unease, that's going to have to be dealt with. Now, whether or not it's dealt by a group of individuals that have been put into place or have taken the charge themselves, or a singular person in that same circumstance, that's up to your group. But it's important to have that structure. It's very much like a business. And a business can have those same issues. When you've got if you're a single person, there's only so much you can do, you've only got so many hours in the day. Once you start to multiply your efforts by getting a team together, you see some fantastic growth. But at some stage, those little mom and pop superstores that grow to be the size of multinational giants, right? There is no way that the group or person at the top can know all of the individuals as they once did. You take McDonald's as an example, right? There was a time they were a single store, all the employees were known by the owner. Now it's a case that there's stores all over the world, and no one person can say that they know, at the very least, on any kind of personal level, any one individual. But it's very well managed. They have a structure, and that structure and rules and all that is maintained. But the second thing I was going to say, right now that I've mentioned that, is just a case of supplies.
Yep.
Supplies and resources are going to be spread more thin if you have more people, and that's the crux of it. This is the number one reason why, as much as you might have a big heart, if someone comes knocking on your door asking for a handout, again in these circumstances, if you have plenty now, it's obviously good to give. If someone is obviously in need,
But the thing you've got to watch though is how many people is that person going to say, hey, you can go here and get supplies. And that's the risk you run, because if you help them out and then thousands of people come asking for help or there to take it, because that's the thing, if you get into an SHTF or a WROL, you're likely to have huge gangs attack you if it's known that you have supplies. one of the other things is the law of diminishing returns. The larger your group gets, the almost exponentially faster your supplies will diminish.
Yeah.
And then you get the issue that if it is an actual grid down SHTF or WROL or a tier 2 walkie, no one's producing new things to replenish what's being used. So you've got to come up with alternatives or workarounds.
Yeah. What I was going to say, my PSA was just going to be, if you can give today, give, because the world isn't a mess right now, depending on where you are right now. Go ahead. You got some spare clothes, some old clothes, give them to charity, whatever it might be. But yeah, when it is a role situation and someone comes knocking, it is a difficult call, and your circumstances will vary, and the people in your group and that are going to vary, and the leadership is going to be different. But as a rule of thumb, it's a case of protecting your own. If an outsider comes knocking, you don't know what they are. They could come to you as just a humble gentleman who's down on his luck because of the situation, who's been attacked by raiders and had all of his supplies taken. He was lucky to get out alive, but he is he's someone that's he's a spy. He's coming through for intel. You let him into your ranks. You give him a night's a place to sleep for the night and some food and clothing, and you send him on his way. And then later that day, he comes back with a band of 15 other well-armed people. Right?
And that actually happened on a show called Colony. It was it was like a simulation of what people would do if they were put in basically an SHTF situation with only what they could scavenge to survive. And there was a woman who was pretending to be pregnant when in reality it was just a pillow she had under her top.
Yeah.
But that got her into the group, that got her to be able to see the supplies, and the next day there was a huge raid of over 50 people attacking the group to take their supplies, which taught the group a very severe lesson and demonstrated an extremely critical issue that can occur in these grid down situations.
Yeah. So you're watching us, you watch them, Colony Grouse Show, not sponsored, hashtag.
Unfortunately though, that show hasn't been on TV in good 6 odd years.
Oh, mate, they could bring it back.
If you can track it down, watch it. It's not to be confused with the new TV series. This is more of a documentary / simulation series that aired about 5-6 years ago. Only had really 2 seasons.
It was really good.
Definitely worth.
Oh, mate. Really good. Well, you watch that right now. They tried to get a cross section of society, right? So they've got some medical, some engineers, some handymen,
some models.
Yeah, right. So it's it was done in the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina. Right?
Yes, it was.
Yeah, so
and some of the blocks that were going to be on the back burner for the repair.
Yeah, exactly. So they just sectioned off a nice big area of that and said let's film some stuff here. I mean, unique situation given that a natural disaster had already made a big area of urban society, defunct and unusable for modern living. But yeah, I'll tell you what, you watch that and you think about the basic tenets of survival, and then you extrapolate with time and resources and intelligence, right? Number one, I suppose they failed in a lot of cases for some of the basic survival tenets, right? So protection, number one, that was not on the forefront of their agenda.
Water was definitely not on the forefront of their agenda. That was on the back burner. Oh, we've got like a week's worth. It doesn't matter. We don't need any more just yet. We'll address it when it needs. And then they wondered why they were short on supplies.
Yeah. So given it was a simulation, you can make those kinds of mistakes. If someone, for whatever reason, they decided to drink tainted water and they got deathly ill by it.
There was an emergency medic on standby to rush them to hospital.
Yeah, exactly. So given that it was a simulation, you can make those kinds of mistakes. Same with us today. We've come out ill prepared because we thought that it was going to be a nice sunny day. Unfortunately, it was actually quite the opposite.
However, to be fair, we were still prepared. As far as we had enough stuff that we could make do in the situation. Yeah. So when we say we came out ill prepared or unprepared, that's by our standards. We didn't have all our wet weather equipment. We definitely did not come out missing stuff. We came out with everything we needed.
Yeah.
Just
No,
we weren't
absolutely.
expecting it to be as drenched.
You know, usually for me, I wouldn't mind having another tarp or, you know,
A ground sheet.
Yeah,
you know.
exactly. Certain things like that. But again, you know, you live and you learn, and
It's all part of the fun. I mean, seriously,
yeah.
you know, you just take it as it comes. You laugh at Mother Nature. You know, you go, yeah, well, you may have won this one, but you haven't ruined our fun.
Yeah,
You haven't
exactly
ruined our
right.
day.
Exactly right.
Sorry, back to the colony. One thing I was going to mention, that in both seasons they kept forgetting. I mean, in the second season, in order to keep the experiment on track and prevent it from derailing, they had to actually bring in a guy who was like special forces or something, like the producers of the show, because in both seasons of the show, everyone forgot pretty much the most important thing. And under the rule of 3x2, this comes under the first and most important thing: protection.
Yeah.
No one in either season, until only in the second season when they were told to, worried about security. They thought, oh, it'll be fine. There's nothing to worry about. You know, we'll just deal with everything peacefully.
Yeah.
You need security.
This is until, like in the first season, they got raided. That's the first one. So that they use the raid to then smarten them up and say, oh, hang on a second, let's get that through. But
by still, the point
yeah.
was they wasted time, and by that stage, they lost a lot of stuff in the raid that they could secure with, not to mention, they lost a lot of supplies.
Yeah. Which was the season that they had the, they had that spare room that no one had checked out?
Oh, yes, in the first season, they failed to properly survey their actual facility.
Yeah.
And they realised there was actually a loft room which you had to access with a ladder, and no one had realised that it was there. And that's extremely dangerous. There could have been an adversary or an enemy up there, either spying on them or getting ready to steal from them or pick them off. You've really got to check your area when you get there.